Okay. Hello, Brad. Brad's just popped into the room. I am going to get started in a few minutes. Had a lot of people sign up for the talk today, but many of them are in the US and overseas, and it's the middle of the night. So this one's for the Aussies at the right time zone. And if I could ask everybody to mute their microphones, that would be great. Thanks, Abe. Just waiting for Brad. Okay. Just wait a couple more minutes to invite people in, but welcome all of the Snowkiters are here. If you know how to use the chat on your Zoom, if you could jump in the chat and let me know where you're coming from today, and also whether you're new to snowkiting, or if you're already an intermediate or an advanced snowkiter. I would love to know who's joining today. Okay, well, it is 6:05, so I am going to start, and everybody who joins me live, that's fantastic. And if you're going to watch the replay, that's fantastic too. So welcome snowkiters, either snowkiters already or future snowkiters. Welcome to all the Aussies who were able to join live today, and welcome to everybody in the USA and overseas who might be watching the replay. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about snowkite safety. And as many of you already know, I am so passionate about snowkiting, and I'm so excited to share my knowledge with others so that everybody else can get as much joy out of this sport as I do. So I think the first thing I'd like to do is to introduce myself. My name is Jenny Milton, aka Adrenajen. I've been into adrenaline sports all my life and was given the nickname Adrenajen long ago because of all the adrenaline sports that I get into. I was Australia's youngest ski instructor at the age of 14, which started my skill set of skiing and also teaching and coaching as well at a very, very young age. You know, fast forward to the age of 44, and I learned the skills to be a backcountry guide up in Alaska. Which is fantastic. This is Alaska behind me here. Very passionate about Alaska, and I'm proud to have spent 20 years or seasons up there, learning the skills to be in the big mountains. My parents were keen sailors, and I'm so grateful to have learned about wind at a young age, especially when learning to windsurf. As kids, my brother and I also learned about weather and open navigation, which was fantastic. And they're still the skills that I use today. And I'm so grateful to my parents for teaching me all of that. I was gifted my first kite back in the mid-90s by my brother and my boyfriend at the time. They went halves and bought me a kite. And that was the start of my kite journey in life. If I could just get everybody who's jumping in new to mute their microphones, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. And I still remember the day when I put my two sports together, my love of flying kites and then my love of skiing and snowboarding. It was fantastic. I remember that day well. I was actually a snowboarder at the time, so I do have experience snowboarding with a kite as well. And I remember being towed around with this kite. I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't had a lesson, and I am lucky to be here today, because back in 1998, when those kites came out, they weren't as safe as they are now. You would have heard, you know, in the media, a lot of accidents that happened back in the, you know, early 2000s, before the kites had all the safety features that they have today. You know, I'm actually stoked that I learned back then, because it gave me extra, you know, safety, you know, protocols and systems from those old scary kites that I still use today. So I've been snow kiting for 20 years, and I'm more in love with the sport of snow kiting than ever before. And it gives me great joy to share my passions with others, especially women, at all my women's camps. But it's okay to the boys. I am running private and also some group lessons and some co-ed sessions as well for people to learn. Now, snow kiting is a sport which is done outside of resorts, and therefore we need some extra safety in place. We haven't got, you know, the ski patrol looking after us and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I do and that I've learned over the years, some through learning and some through trial and error, that has kept me safe. And hopefully you're going to, you know, get something out of this talk today, no matter whether you're a beginner or advanced. I hope there's some tips here or some reminders to you about how to be safe. How did I gain my knowledge? I gained my knowledge from learning, having lessons, being open to learning, asking lots of questions to other kiters. And everybody does things a little bit differently, but once you add that knowledge to your own knowledge, then you can come up with your own systems. My systems must be working, because I'm very proud to be a professional snow kiter and snow kite coach. I'm a qualified IKO and KA. KA stands for Kiteboarding Australia kite instructor, and also a big mountain skier and backcountry guide. Over the years, I love to compete. I don't know if you guys know my brother, Michael Milton, but my brother is, you know, a famous skier back here in Australia. He holds the Australian speed record for speed skiing, and he's competed in the Paralympics multiple times, getting many gold medals for Australia. So he and I love to compete, and I was proud to be named the Australian Women's Kite Surfing Champion in 2018 in the waves. I also got a wildcard entry to the GKA World Kite Surfing Finals and came fourth. But one of the things I'm most proud of is getting a second place in the Red Bull Ragnarok snow kite race in 2019, which is a huge endurance 5-hour snow kiting race. And I came second in the women's ski division against the 5 times world champion. I also get to compete in some local snow kite races. And this year we had some excellent races at the Alaska Snow Kite Festival. And I was proud to win a few of the sort of, you know, trial races, and come out with a first place in the cross country race, and a second place in the big mountain race. And Tom Fredericks, who beat me, is here today. Way to go, Tom. He and I had a great time racing this year. So it's important to gain skills and confidence in all 3 aspects of snow kiting. So the 3 skills that we need to learn are ski and snowboard skills, plus our kite skills, and also backcountry skills. That's a biggie. You know, I meet a lot of kiters who kiteboard on water, and they're excellent kiters on water. They're excellent skiers or snowboarders in the resort, but maybe they haven't done a lot of backcountry yet. And that is a whole nother skill set, which is really important for snow kiting, since we're doing that outside of resort. If you can let me know in the chat if you're a kiter on water or if you only kite on snow. I personally learnt on snow to begin with, and then moved to Hawaii to get some lessons, and learnt on water as well. A question that I get asked quite often is it safe to learn on snow? You know, a lot of the water kiters believe that if we learn on water, we've got a soft surface, and that's so true. But is it safe to learn on snow? Yes, it is. I learned on snow. I teach a lot of people who have never flown a kite before to fly on snow, but it's really important to know all the safety features of the kites and have a really good risk assessment plan in place. And that's what I'm here today to share with you. So one of the things that sort of keeps the clarity in my risk assessment is coming up with a word, flow, right? Flow to me stands for forecast, location, observations, and weather. And if we can have a think about flow before every session, that's going to set us up to have plans in place and have our risk assessment you know, in a format that we can very easily work on. So let's talk about forecast first. I'm not going to teach you to forecast today. There's lots of different weather apps out there, but forecasting is our first chance to look for dangers, right? We need to have a look at a wind and weather forecast. It's great to look at an avalanche report if you're in, you know, an area that could have, you know, avalanches. Snow conditions, we need to look at not just the weather, but what is the snow surface? That's the thing when we're kiting on water, is the water surface. It might change in terms of bumpiness, but it's very, very similar every time we go. Whereas snow conditions change a lot from light powder snow to harder packed snow. We need to look for red flags in the forecast. You know, we can start looking for dangers lying in bed looking at our phone before we even get out into the field. Some of the dangers to think about are increasing or decreasing winds. You know, if we're going out for the day kiting, is it going to increase and we might need a bigger size? Is it going to increase and it might be too strong for our current skill set for kiting? Is the wind going to die? You know, what if we were out there kiting and the wind stopped and we're a long way from home and we had to walk out? These are some of the things to think about. Change in wind direction. That's definitely a red flag in the forecast to decide, you know, which location we're going to go to. But a change in wind direction can definitely have a change in wind speed and weather. Look for high avalanche dangers in certain areas. If you're kiting on a frozen lake, think about the ice thickness on the lake. And there are different ways that we can gather all that information before we head out there into the field to make our decision if it's the right place to go. So once we've done our forecasting, have a think about location. Okay, choosing your location based on the forecast and the wind direction. The photo here is one of my favorite places to kite, which is up in Alaska in Thompson Pass out of Valdez. Now I have about 6 different launch locations for different wind speeds and different wind directions. So it's really important to do our forecasting so that I can decide, you know, or we can decide which location we're going to go to. We're looking for a location with clean wind flow, a location with no obstructions upwind that might affect the wind. We need to look for a location with no dangers downwind of us. Of course, we need permission to use the area, and you know, national parks, we need permission to kite in there, or if it's private land, you might want to speak to the landowners before using it, and that's really important to have that permission. We are snow kiting outside of ski resorts, right? So we need to think about that, and we need to make sure our location is away from other backcountry users. You might turn up to a location that you've snow kited before, but all of a sudden there's a big group of ski tourists or a cross-country ski race, and that location may not be the right location for the day. The location needs to have a good place to launch, right? No roads, or resort downwind. This is a big one, especially in Australia. I love to snow kite out of Thredbo in Australia, and we hike out the back. Unfortunately, we are upwind of the resort, and if we launch just outside the boundary and something went wrong, our kite, blew downwind, it could blow into resort, get stuck around a chairlift, and that would probably be it for us snow kiting out of that particular location. So really think about what is downwind of you, just in case you let one of your kites go. Some locations are better for light wind. They might have an accelerated wind speed in that location, and other locations are better for high wind. There are places that we can get out of the high flow wind and find a location with a lower wind. Again, when I'm kiting out of Thredbo, we have Cox Harbour, which tends to be a lighter wind. Like if it's high winds, we can go to Cox Harbour, and that spot's great. If it's light wind, we might be heading up to the Ram's Heads. And I hope you're thinking about your own personal location and where you've got different areas, high wind, low wind. Maybe you've got an area where there's absolutely no wind because you've got a wind hole because of the terrain upwind. Think about also the best aspect for snow kiting. And this is when, certain aspects might be higher avalanche danger on a slope. So think about those best aspects for avalanches and also for snow conditions. Some aspects will get more sun and possibly be a softer snow conditions, or other areas in the shadows might be hard packed. So think about that aspect, and also think about the access and exit plan at the location. How are you going to get in there, and what's your exit plan to get back out? If you could jump in the chat box and let me know your snow kite location. I would love to know where you guys are all snow kiting. That would be great. So the next one in the flow, we had forecast, we had location. Next one is observations. So once you're at your location, you need to look around for any dangers to avoid and be aware of. Are there rocks? Are there trees? Are there people? Are there kiters? What's the snow surface doing? Are there any signs of avalanches that could be a major red flag? Are there any cornices or wind-loaded slopes around? Have a look for different terrain features, ones that could be problems, and also terrain features that might be fun to play on, slash on, jump, that sort of thing. Again, in the observations, look for obstructions upwind that could affect our wind flow, and obstacles downwind that we wouldn't want to get pulled into. Think about when you're looking at your location, think about the best place to launch and land. Where is going to be the safest place to launch and land that's away from people with the cleanest wind flow? I love this photo here. This is me snow kiting in Idaho. Fence posts. We don't get a lot of fence posts out in the national park, but in some locations, there'll be posts, trees, lots of different things around. The last thing that I always do when I'm doing my observations at the location is to try and get a wind sensor reading. We'll have the forecast, and so we'll have an idea of what the weather's supposed to be. But if we can find a wind sensor that's close to our location, we can check that to see what the wind is actually doing. And that's a chance, once you've looked at all of these locations, observations, is this the right location to go snow kiting today? And are the conditions within my skill level? If your observations is at super high wind and you're just learning to kite, maybe it's not the right time to go. Maybe you're a great kiter and you're super keen to go, and you get to the location, and in your observations you realize that the snow surface is hard pack and icy. You might catch lines, you might catch an edge, and possibly the conditions are not suitable for snow kiting. And this is always a hard decision to make. They call it the human factor when we're doing our avalanche training. And it's all about mindset and feeling, and making sure we make a smart decision based on our observations and not make our decisions based on, oh my God, I got a couple of days away from the kids and I've planned this trip for a long time and all my friends are coming. Sometimes we just have to say it's a no-go. So the last thing in my flow is wind and weather, right? So from the time you get to the location to the time you finish your session, we need to be constantly checking the wind and weather. Things can change quickly. So ask yourself these questions. Does the forecast match the actual conditions? What do the gusts and lulls feel like? This is something I'm always thinking about when I'm setting up my lines. It can take us, 10, 15 minutes to set up our kite gear. And that gives us 10 or 15 minutes to be feeling the wind and knowing what the peak of the gusts are and the lulls, so we can make a decision of what kite we're going to pump up, right? Do I feel like the wind is increasing or dropping during the day? That's an important one to make a decision of when you're going to head back, right? Do I see flagging on the peaks? That's snow being blown off the top of the peaks. That can be a sign. Look, hey, it's a photo behind me here. We can see some flagging off these peaks. That's a sign that the wind could be increasing at high altitude, and that high wind could move down to lower altitude where we're kiting. Do I see a change in the cloud cover? It's important not just to look down at the snow surface, but look up at the sky. Do we see clouds coming over? Are there dark clouds upwind of us that are moving this way? And the biggest decision is, should I head back? There's been many times when I've been out there snow kiting and I've been having a great time, and all of a sudden I feel a change in the wind in my kite. And I'm like, ooh, okay, something's changing. That's normally a sign that I should maybe not be as far away from base camp as I am, and maybe I need to move a little bit closer so that I don't get stuck out far away from my base camp or home or car or resort where you're heading back to. So the first thing I'd like to have a look at is kite gear. Right? There's a lot of safety involved in kite gear. And when you're having your lessons, you're going to learn about the safety features of your kites. We've got a choice of using a foil kite or an inflatable kite when we're snow kiting. Foil kites, like the yellow one in the picture there, are designed for land-based kiting, although we're seeing a lot more foils out on the water now that everybody's on a hydrofoil. And then we have inflatable kites like the green one in the picture, which are designed for flying on water, and we use a pump to pump them up so that if we crash them on water, they float and we can do a water relaunch. Both kites work great on the snow. Which one's safer? I believe they're both safe if you know how to use them, you know the safety features, and you know the pros and cons over both, so that you know when is a good time to use it or not. It's important to check the condition and the year of your kites. Before 2008, a lot of the kites didn't have a full depower, and since then the kites have gotten safer, although I tend to think, try and use a kite that is within about 5 years of our current date, to make sure that you've got the latest and greatest safety systems in your kite and also your bar and lines. It's important to check your lines regularly. It's one of the things I do when I have my group Snowkite camps is I get everybody get their bars and lines out, and we attach them to a carabiner on a pole, and we check to make sure that they're straight. Over the last 12 months, I would say about 60 to 70% of the bars and lines that I've checked, and I've checked a lot, are not correct. A line's been stretched. It's very easy for the middle lines on our kites to stretch over time because the kite is hanging off those middle lines. It's easy for one of the lines to get stretched. One, if we have a kite mare, or two, maybe we're jumping the same way every time and pulling hard on one line more than the other. That line will stretch. My husband, he has his his top line stretched when he's riding waves in the same direction all the time. And this is a normal thing to happen. Doesn't mean you need to go out and buy new bar and lines. You just need to check your lines and then adjust them and tune them to make sure that all 4 lines are the same length. Some kites do have a 5th line for safety, and especially many of the foil kites, and that's great. 4-line kites also have safety systems that work great on snow. But it's important to check your safety systems. Again, when was the last time you pulled your chicken loop under pressure and checked it? When was the last time you checked your leash? You know, if we're only using those safety features in an emergency and we're not checking them regularly, it can be easy to have, you know, sand, salt, or something happen to them and then malfunction. So for me, how often do I check my safety? I check it every time. It's just a routine now when I'm setting up my gear to make sure that my chicken loop safety and my leashes are working. And I also like to pull my my chicken loop safety when I'm landing the kite. It's a fantastic way to land the kite. It's super safe. And also you're checking that it's working every single time in a controlled environment so that if you do have to pull it in an emergency, you know what to expect and how it's working. It's also important to check that your harness fits over your ski gear, right? A lot of us have harnesses that are nice and tight, fitting over our bikinis or our wetsuits. But when we try to put it over all of our ski pants and jackets and multiple layers, they don't fit as well. Also, our harnesses can, if you're wearing a waist harness, tend to ride up, which can be uncomfortable. And also it reduces the amount of throw that we have when we're pushing our bar out or letting it go. So it's important to make sure your harness fits over your ski gear. And you might want to, if you're snow kiting a lot, think about getting a specific Snowkite harness, which has leg loops. They're not seat harnesses. They're more like a climbing harness with leg loops. And it just holds the harness down. I love wearing my Ozone backcountry connect harness. I don't have to have it super tight around my waist. It's very, very lightweight. I use the one even without a hook or a bar, which means I can wear it when I'm hiking to my launch locations if I've got a heavy backpack on. It gives me some great back support. You can use a climbing harness for snow kiting, and a lot of people do that and it works great. The only thing I think you want to think about is if you have any back issues, having the Snowkite harnesses, which have a much bigger lumbar support, is going to be better for your back. So when we go out there, I always like to recommend taking 2 kites, unless you only own 1. But if you can bring 2 kites with you, take a guess if you're going to need your middle kite and your big kite if it's on the light wind end, or whether you're going to need your small kite and your medium kite if the wind's going to be picking up during the day. Bring 2 kites with you. That will avoid you just using the wrong size kite and possibly being overpowered or getting hurt. If you're not sure which kite size you need, which is always a tricky one, start small. Use your small kite first. You're always better off giving that a try. And if it's too small and you're underpowered, easy, get a bigger kite. But if you pump up your big one and you launch it and all of a sudden you're overpowered, you didn't realize how strong the wind was up high, and you're overpowered, then problems could possibly occur. So start small is my recommendation. When you're setting up your kite, double check, triple check. I remember when I was learning and I wasn't 100% sure, I would always get my partner to come and check my lines. I'd check his, he'd check mine, and then we knew that we'd had that double check. Or double check it yourself. Even if you're confident, double checking is going to keep you safe. It's one of the things that is dangerous is if you accidentally attached a wrong line or something like that. So double check when you're setting up. And also checking your leash. Right? Safety, your safety leash, double check to see if it's working, and definitely make sure it's attached. I've seen multiple people just forget because they're so excited to get out there, forget to attach their leash. So again, that's for our own safety and also the safety of others, so that if we do pull out our safety and let the kite go, it's still attached to us so that it doesn't blow into other users or get blown downwind into any obstacles. So what to wear? I'm going to cover what to wear because this also is something that determines our safety when snow kiting. Think about protective gear, helmets. I mean, that's obvious, but many people may not know that I actually wear knee pads every day when I'm skiing and snow kiting. I don't fall on my knees that much, but I do believe that keeping our knees warm is going to help with possible knee injuries. Preventative is better than fixing it after the event. I do know other people who, if they're snow kiting on maybe a frozen lake with a hard surface, they do wear some more protective gear like body armor, similar to mountain bikers. Waterproof and windproof layers to stay dry and stay warm is important. And think about having, pit zips underneath, because we do get quite hot when we're snow kiting. It can be cold when we're setting up in the wind with the wind chill. Then when we start moving, we're going to get hot. So it's important to be able to vent in order to not get too sweaty underneath. Getting wet underneath our clothes can be a problem. If we do get hurt, we'll be wet, and that could attribute to hypothermia. Puffy jacket. This is super, super important in my books. Puffy jacket, one for us to stay warm, but also something to have in our pack in case somebody gets hurt. We get hurt, somebody else gets hurt. So always carry a puffy jacket. They're fantastic these days. They pack up small, fit into your backpack. My recommendation, which is more of a USA system that I learned in Alaska, is to get your puffy jacket oversized so that you can put it over your shell jacket and over your harness when you're setting up. And then when you're ready to go, it's easy to pull that jacket off to be in your, more physical layers for getting hot. It gets hard when you're putting on a layer underneath all your layers. It can be a pain in the butt to take everything off, pull off a layer, put everything back on. So I highly recommend getting a puffy jacket to put over the top. Gloves and mitts are fantastic when it's really cold and Arctic. Having mitts is great, and I've got some wonderful tips for how to rig your lines with Arctic mitts on. But it's important to also maybe wear glove liners underneath your gloves or your mitts, so that when we're doing the knots up, or we need to, do all these little fiddly things with our kites, we've got the option of not having bare hands. In Australia, it's not so much of an issue, but I know when I'm kiting in Montana, Idaho, Alaska, you don't want to get frostbite, and having bare skin can be a problem. So having, say, some Polartec glove liners is awesome. Face protection, neck tube balaclavas to protect you from that wind chill, eye protection, goggles, sunglasses, and also an avalanche beacon worn on your body. That is important if we're in avalanche terrain. We don't want to put it in our backpack. It needs to be on our body. I did have a bit of an issue wearing my avalanche beacon on my chest. By the time I had my harness on and all my gear, and of course I'm female with some boobs in there, the beacon wasn't very comfortable for me. So I have chosen to wear it in my pants. If you're going to do that, it's important to have a connector to connect it to your pants, but please don't put it in your backpack or in your jacket. There have been cases of that gear being ripped off in an avalanche. Avoid cotton tees, hoodies, and socks. This is a big one. I get a lot of kiteboarders and kite surfers turn up to go snow kiting, and they're all wearing their favorite Ozone t-shirts and their favorite hoodies and that sort of thing, which we all love to wear. But unfortunately, they're not the greatest thing to wear when we're snow kiting, because cotton tends to absorb moisture and it takes a long time to dry. So when you're doing your laundry, what's the last thing to dry? Your cotton hoodies. If we are wet underneath and we get hurt, hypothermia is going to be an issue, and we might have to actually strip you off and get those wet layers off and get some dry layers on you in a worst case scenario. So it's better just to avoid cotton tees, hoodies, and socks. So let's talk about what to bring with you for safety, right? It's important to have a backpack to bring with you. Many of the KITE backpacks that come with the kites are not suitable for big backcountry missions. I believe that waist and chest straps are essential in order to have that backpack, especially when it's heavy, not flopping around. And also, you know, getting some of that weight on your hips, which is going to be a better system for your back. So if your KITE backpack is not suitable, think about getting a different backpack that's going to work with chest and waist straps. If you have a look at this picture, you can actually see I'm carrying 2 backpacks. Why am I carrying 2 backpacks? I've got one backpack which has got 2 kites, bar and lines, pump, all my gear in it. And then I'm also carrying another backpack with my safety, rescue gear, food, water, everything I need while I'm out snow kiting. I made the decision that it's really important not to leave all your safety gear at your base camp where you launch, because if you're off snow kiting and something happens, you're not going to be able to get to your gear. So I like to have a small backpack with me, very similar to what you would wear backcountry touring, that I'll wear when I'm snow kiting all the time with my gear. Also having, you know, 3-piece poles and skins for travel, an excellent idea, and make sure you've got those in your backpack that you're kiting with, so that if the wind dies, you've got a way to get home. Shovel, probe, and beacon. So a shovel is more than just digging someone out of an avalanche. A shovel is an excellent tool for us to use as an anchor, to anchor our kite, to shovel snow on top of our kite, to build a snow wall. You know, if we wanted to block the wind. Shovels are awesome, and it's really important that you bring a shovel every time. A probe. Do we need a probe when we're not in avalanche terrain? I say yes. I carry a probe every time. It's great to have a system and just stick with it. I also use my probe as a flagpole and attach a little windsock to it. Many of you have been out with me will see me do that, and that allows me to be able to see what the wind is doing while I'm out there snow kiting from a distance. Also, wearing an avalanche transceiver or beacon is important, not just for us, but for others. I know the location that I snow kite in Alaska, where a lot of people are snow kiting down on the flats, and they say, Jen, I don't need a beacon, I'm not in avalanche terrain. But how are you going to feel when you see a skier over there on the mountain get caught in an avalanche, and you can get over there very quickly with a kite, but you didn't have your beacon on in order to search? That would be my worst nightmare, is not having the gear I needed to help somebody else. So shovel, probe, beacon is always in my pack, and I recommend it is for you too. Communication, phone, radio, PLB, inReach, and a spot. Carrying multiple communication methods is important. We're all using our phone as a camera and video these days, and it's so easy in cold weather for the battery to die. So having multiple communication methods is really important, or carrying a power pack for your phone, something like that. Walkie-talkie radios between the group is a great idea. And then also having an option for communication if there is no phone reception. Things like a PLB, which is a personal location beacon that we can just press a button, it sends out a signal to emergency services. Carry first aid and emergency rescue gear in your pack. Skins. Skiers and splitboarders need skins to put on the bottom of their skis or splitboard in order to travel around in the backcountry if there's no wind, or if you're trying to get to your launch location, or if the wind dies and you need to get home. If you're a snowboarder, splitboards are great. But if you don't have a splitboard, then I recommend snowshoes. There's a little picture down there in the corner of snowshoes, and they'll allow you to walk in deep snow without getting too tired and post-hole. GPS, map, very important if in a whiteout, and to know where you're going and learn some navigation skills. And also toolkit, spare parts, duct tape, zip ties, all of that sort of stuff is great for fixing gear, MacGyver style, or also if somebody gets hurt to MacGyver some splints or anything that they might need. Think about when you're packing your backpack also, are you carrying enough supplies to wait for rescue or spend the night? You know, if you do need rescue, it can take hours for them to get there. And so you need to be ready to stay warm and have everything that you need to wait for the rescue. One of the most important things for safety is having a partner, a kite buddy. One of the most important things to do for safety while snow kiting is to have a partner. If one person gets into trouble, the other can help or call for extra assistance. If you don't have any friends who snow kite, which is a common problem, then try and bring a friend or family member who does backcountry to come with you. Do what you can to get anybody to come and keep an eye on you. And I like to sort of bring a trainer kite and maybe teach them how to fly the trainer kite so that they can be entertained while we're snow kiting around if they're non-kiters. Also think about when you're grabbing a partner, you might just meet a kiter in the lift line, you know nothing about them. Have a chat, find out your partner's ski, kite and backcountry skill level so that you know what they know, and you can decide whether they are the right partner for you. It's a great idea to make sure that between the two of you or a bigger group that you're carrying all the safety and rescue gear needed. Plus, you know how to use it. Your partner might have to rescue you. Now, if I'm going in a bigger group, I will take extra gear with me, things like thermarest or a sleeping bag or a tent or something to help with a bigger group if we are stuck out there. Discuss with the group and have a plan in place for all scenarios that could go wrong in your particular area. It's always great to have a kite briefing before you head out for the day to discuss, you know, the weather, the scenarios that could go wrong, and have a plan in place. Dangers. Ask yourself questions. You know, can I deal with any of the following situations? Can I deal with an injury while snow kiting, an injury to myself or others? Communication when you're out of phone reception. Knowing the GPS coordinates to share with emergency services. How are they going to find you if they don't know where you are? So there's apps. You might have a GPS with you. There's a great phone app I'm going to share with you in a little bit to make sure that you can give emergency services an idea of where you are. Staying warm while waiting for help. Can you stay warm? Right? Have you got enough gear with you? That puffy jacket, you'll be loving it. Navigating in a whiteout. Is that something you can do? If not, don't head out in a whiteout. Or if the weather's coming in and you see that on the forecast, maybe it's not the right time to go. Can you spend the night out there? That can be super brutal if you're not ready. Food, water, stuff to keep warm. Can you deal with being caught in an avalanche? Have you done some training? What about if you fell in a hole, you fell in a crevasse, or there was a snow bridge failure over a crevasse or a river or something like that, and you fell in a hole? Do you have, you know, the ropes or gear to get out of that hole? And can you deal with kite mares? The longer you kite for, you will, you know, hopefully not have any too major kite mares, but we all have little kite mares of getting our lines tangled, the kite turning inside out, something going wrong. Can we deal with those kite mares? These are the questions to ask before you go. So the next slide actually comes from the avalanche training that I teach, right? I do specific snow kite avalanche training, and I was so lucky to work with Sarah Carter from the Valdez Avalanche Association to write a paper for the International Snow Science Workshop of the impact of snow kiting in avalanche terrain, and how there's a lot of people with kite and ski and snowboard skills, but they're lacking in those backcountry skills. And do they have avalanche skills needed to be out there? So get the gear. Ensure everyone has an avalanche transceiver, shovel, probe on their person and knows how to use them. Plus a lot of the other gear I've already mentioned. Get the training. Take an avalanche course, first aid course, get some kite lessons on snow, or get a guide to go with you if you're not sure where you're going. Get the forecast, make a plan based on weather and wind forecast, an avalanche report, or snow conditions. The more information you can gather before you go out there, better equipped you'll be to deal with the conditions. Get the picture. Yeah, get the photo of yourself, the video of yourself snow kiting, but that's not what I'm talking about in this case. Get the overall picture of the conditions and the dangers by getting good at observations and identifying those red flags, right? We might see one red flag and go, okay, there's a red flag. There's a hole over there. That's a red flag, but I can deal with it as long as I stay away from that, and I can still continue on my snow kiting adventure from the day. But if you're seeing multiple red flags, if you're seeing 3 red flags out there, that might be a sign that today's not the day, and that's important to identify. Get out of harm's way. Be aware of avalanche terrain, including wind-loaded slopes and cornices, especially if someone's above you or if you're snow kiting in the run-out zone. Wind loading is a huge factor in terms of avalanche danger, and we are out there kiting in the wind and the snow, so we can tend to get ourselves onto wind loaded slopes very easily, and we can also cover a huge amount of ground to get us on different aspects of the mountain, and some aspects might be higher danger than others. So it's really, really important to get the training and make sure you're aware of the areas not to go. Also, getting rescue ready. Carry all your rescue gear while you're kiting so that you're ready when needed. I've seen it so many times. People leave their rescue gear where they launch and they go off kiting without a backpack. Something happens and they don't have their gear ready. So thanks for coming today, and I'd like to offer you guys a question and answer. So if you want to ask any questions, please use the chat to add some questions in there. And while you're doing that, I'd also like to mention that I run snow kiting lessons, tours, and camps in Alaska, Australia, Idaho, and Montana during the year. So if you're new to snow kiting and you want to come and have a beginner lesson, please let me know. And if you're already an advanced snow kiter and you're ready to take it to the mountains, then please come visit me in Alaska. Have a look. I don't know if you guys can see, that's me snow kiting there. Just gives you a little bit of scale of where we get to snow kite in Alaska. The type of kiters that I get coming up to Alaska are anywhere from beginners, and we can just learn on the flats, to kiting in the mountains. So I'm just going to have a read through the questions. If you've got your microphone on, I would love you to turn your microphone off if you could. That would be great. Yes, Mike Walker, of course, wear sunscreen. Everybody should already know that one. Compass, of course, compass and map, GPS. Partner with walkie-talkies, the go. Yep. Have we got some questions? Right. Chris just got an 11-meter hyperlink, which is an excellent kite there. One of the things that I haven't mentioned is emergency services numbers. And it's really important if you're out there in the backcountry to know that it's not ski patrol's job to come and rescue you. Right, I actually had a conversation with Dave, who's the head of ski patrol in Thredbo, who was part of a rescue of a snow kiter that got injured a couple of weeks ago, and I had a great conversation with him just to find out, what I could share with you guys of what you need. And he wanted me to mention to you that it's so important to know don't call ski patrol. It's not their job. Legally, it's not their job to come and rescue you. Even if they do end up being part of the rescue, it's really important that you ring emergency services. So in Australia, emergency services is 000, dial 000. In the US, it's 911. In the UK, it's 999. And so don't be afraid of calling those numbers. I have had to call 000 in Australia for an emergency, and search and rescue were absolutely fantastic dealing with the situation. So don't be afraid to call them to ask for help if you need it. If possible, it would be great to be able to rescue yourself. Self-rescue is so important when we're kiting. And if you can rescue yourself between you and the group, do so. But if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. I'm just reading a couple of the questions here. Yeah, keeping it small is super important. Gliding, someone's mentioned gliding. What a great question. Can you give a brief rundown on flying, i.e. gliding? Now, gliding is something that a lot of advanced snow kiters enjoy doing. Gliding is where we will actually take off on a slope and spend a lot of time in the air. Essentially, we're using the kite as a speed flying wing or paraglider, and we are gliding in the air. The kite manufacturers are not recommending to glide on the gear. It is not designed for that. If you do love to glide, think about doing a speed flying course or a paragliding course and using the gear that is designed for gliding. But if you are going to glide, then you want to really have a good think about all of the safety aspects of your gear, how old your gear is. I know a lot of people that glide on a full-time basis have actually gotten themselves custom bars with thicker lines, with safety systems that could, are not going to potentially break in the cold weather. So yeah, gliding is not something that I recommend. It's not that there's people gliding out there and people are going to do it, and I'm not saying that I don't glide occasionally, but I think it's really important to be aware of the dangers, and there have been some deaths of snow kiters gliding, so do keep that in mind. Things can go wrong up there. Bruce has said, yes, paragliding is not allowed in Kosciuszko National Parks and many national parks around. So that comes back to, do you have permission to do your sport in that area? So yes, this talk is for people all around the world, and there are many locations that do allowed to be that they can speed fly and paraglide in those areas. This area that I have in my background in Thompson Pass, Alaska, during the Alaska Snowkite Festival, which I'm inviting you all to come to in 2023, probably early April. It's full of kiters, paragliders, speed flyers, planes. We've got foil kites and inflatable kites, and that is a great event to go to. So I hope you guys have all enjoyed the talk today. I know I've given you a lot of information. I tried to keep it simple, but as I was putting my talk together, I kept, I've got to tell them that, I've got to tell them that. And I'm sure there's even a few things that I've forgotten, trying to bulk it all up into a half an hour session. But please follow me on Instagram and Facebook to continually get some tips and inspiration about snow kiting, and email me. My email's right there. Email me with any questions, and stay tuned to my website and social media to keep up with any lessons, tours that I might be running in the future. I'll be launching camps in Idaho. They'll be in January. And then I've got camps in Montana early February, and Alaska is March and April. But for all you Aussies who are wanting to go snow kiting, I'll be down in the mountains from about the 16th of September. I'll be doing some private and group lessons out of Threadbow. And also there are still spaces available if you want to join us for the Kite Thrills Wind Week at Charlotte's Pass. Come and spend a week with us. We've got accommodation included, which is the hardest thing to get down the mountains right now. So come and stay with us, come snow kiting, come adventuring, party with us. I would love you to join us for that week if you would like to come. So I'm going to finish it there and say thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you have learnt something and maybe put together you know, a new backpack program, or maybe you're going to book in for some avalanche training. Thank you so much for joining me, and yeah, let's go kiting. Good winds and weather and snow conditions to you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming. I'm just going to stop the recording.